Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I'm Michelle Oliver, and I really appreciate that you have taken time out of your day to show up and support entrepreneurial women. I want to just give a brief introduction, and then we will move right into today's interview. So this project is completely a passion project for me. And it really came out of, for many years, I've been interviewing business owners just out of curiosity and to support them. It's just been kind of a natural thing for me. But as I've coached women over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, it has become really apparent to me that even with the strategies, the tactics, with all of the coaching and support that we can partake of, that at the end of the day, one of the most inspiring, encouraging, motivating things is the ability to connect with other women who have taken these steps before us. Maybe they're only one step ahead of us. Maybe they have built, a multi-million-dollar business. But having those role models and examples, and not women that are so far removed from us that it is difficult for us to see ourselves in their shoes. So my intention and effort here is really to not only encourage and inspire and motivate, but to do that from a place of real accessibility with women who are relatable and amazing women, but women that you can really see yourself as doing what they have been able to do. So my mission in serving women overall is to help them wake up to what's possible for them, to own their own value, to drop the doubt, to step in, to getting curious about what they might be able to do, to be courageous enough to bet on themselves, bet on their value, understand that who and what they are already has this intrinsic value. They just haven't perceived it in that way in terms of a business. Also to step into creativity, to absolutely level up and to build supportive communities where accountability and deeper relationships can be developed. So I really believe it's important. One of my core values is joy and bringing play and fun and these types of activities to business and to relationships. So anyone that showed up today live here, I want you to understand what you have already done simply by showing up. I know this is cliche, but they say that showing up is half the battle. Well, when you show up here, you are telling women that they can show up for themselves. You are planting the seed. You are taking the action. And you are already, just by virtue of you being you and showing up in this supportive way, you are making a statement that they can show up for themselves and that it will make a difference, because that's when you make impact. So just for showing up today, these recordings, the recording today will be actually sent to you at the end of the month so you can watch it at your leisure. You will receive special gifts. You will receive special offers from the speaker. And I want you to help us, please, to get the word out about this. Every day for 22 days, one woman will be interviewed who has started a business either in her late 40s, 50s, 60s, and even older. Every day it will be a different woman. There will be obviously special takeaways from that, things that other women will be able to learn. And at the end of this time, more opportunities, I will share some things that will happen for you. But I want to, if you could help us get the word out. So if you share the link for people to register on social and tag me, I will enter you into a raffle to that will allow you to actually win a full hour of one-on-one coaching with any of the coaches. That not everybody is a coach. I think there's only a few of us, but that's a $500 value for me. I don't know what the other people charge, but you'll win a full 1 hour business and life human coaching. You'll be entered into a raffle for that. And you also, if you share the link on social and tag me, I will mention and share you and your business and any special offers that you have, and I will promote those. And I will also invite everyone else to promote, and we will start to build this connectivity on social to support each other. The other thing is you'll receive invitations for networking events and other opportunities of things we're going to be building. So that being said, I want to thank you again, and I look forward to getting to know you. And every interview will be unique and focused on a entirely different type of woman. And I know you're going to gain a lot of value for this. So share with others who could benefit, and just soak it up, and just reach out to me with any questions or concerns that you may have. And thank you again. Greetings, Kerry Brett.
Hi, Michelle.
I
Thanks
just wanted
for featuring me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So, as you understand, the objective of this interview series is really to encourage and inspire and potentially inform these ladies who might be considering taking the entrepreneurial leap, or they may have some kind of a side hustle or an interest that they just want to take that and grow it into a really substantial business. They may just want to meet some other women who are business owners, who are entrepreneurs. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know this is a crazy month for you, and I really appreciate your time and having you here today. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'd love to start, if you don't mind, by just sharing a little bit of background with everyone who's listening, a little bit about how you started out in your career, and then how that bridged in to your other business, because you've done this twice, to my knowledge, taken
Right.
the leap off the cliff, right?
Yeah. Well, I also published a book, and I published several smaller magazines, and also worked for a magazine for 27 years. So I did all those things, as well as the podcast and building my professional photography studio. So a little bit about me. I grew up just outside of Boston, so 17 miles south of Boston, in a coastal town called Hingham. I'm the oldest of four. And my dad's a photojournalist. He's a well-known photojournalist at the Boston Globe. He worked there for 55 years. And so literally as a little girl, I knew I was going to be a photographer, which was interesting because it was a male-dominated field. And so I really didn't have anyone to look up to as far as a woman. And the way that the job is created, they send men to cover the Patriots game. They send men, because they're physically stronger, to war, to cover the Olympics. And so it really was set up for men. But I had an ability, I had an eye, and I had a passion for photography since I was young. And I was shooting really little. So I would use my dad's equipment and photograph school play. We would print the images I took by hand in the darkroom, would sell them to raise money for the school. I first was published when I was 17 and a half. I got my first page one, which was really cool. And I just wanted it. And I literally, there's this book called The Eyes of the Globe that I would go to bed with, like a nursery rhyme, and I would study people's style. I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but my dad was so talented that he always made page one, and he was the one to beat because he was just an amazing spot news photographer. And so he worked all the time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And when I would see him would be in the morning. So I'd be eating my cereal and he would have the paper, the physical paper, and he would cover the byline and and he would say, "Who took this photograph?" And I could tell by the style, who the photographer was. So I knew how important it was to have this recognizable style because my dad had one that was so strong, and you knew that it was a Bill Brett image if you saw it. And so for me, I had studied him my whole entire life, so I could easily be a knockoff of him. But what fun would that be? So, um, because I only knew photojournalism, that's where I started. And it was dying really back then. It was starting to shift. And a new publication had just come out called The Improper Bostonian, and they called the Globe, and I was a contributor at the time, but very young. I was 20, and they said we're looking for someone to cover the party scene, and we're looking for like someone young, like maybe an intern, someone who can come in. Like we are just starting out, we don't have the budget. And I remember I went and I bought a suit. I didn't have a suit. My dad drove me to Newbury Street, and I went in and I told my publisher that he would hire me and that I wasn't leaving without a job. And he could either run, if he liked what I shot, he could run it and pay me. And if he didn't, then he didn't have to use it. So he couldn't really say no to me. And I was so green, but I was so fiercely determined that I started to study Annie Leibovitz. And Annie is the most famous photographer of our time, and she's a woman, which is incredible. And any Annie Leibovitz image, her thumbprint is there. She's
Mm,
had a million interns, a million people working for her. No one can be Annie.
yeah.
And so I thought to myself, why can't I be the Annie Leibovitz of Boston? And that's what I set out to do. And it was challenging because I would shoot oftentimes against Sports Illustrated. So I would always be shooting against a man, always. And then a lot of the times I was shooting male athletes. So when I would walk into the room, they would be like, "Who's this girl? Like, we have enough coffee," or "We don't need makeup," or so they didn't really know what to make of me. But I was always professional, I was always prepared, I was always early, and I was ready to go. And when it was my time, I could step into my power and just I was determined to nail it. And if you don't have that attitude, you'll get eaten alive in this industry, in the celebrity world for sure. So I always I didn't have very much confidence in myself as a person, Kerry the person, but I almost created an alter ego that I could step into that would be Kerry the photographer. And that person was very different than who I was at home. And then that gave me the confidence to command like the audience because literally if you don't have faith in the photographer, the shoot is just going to go south very quick. So I immediately gained the respect of art directors and the talent that I was shooting. And I just did that um, like a one trick pony my entire career for almost 3 decades. So I competed at a very high level. I was a national affiliated speaker. I went all over the country speaking, lecturing, teaching professional photographers, writing for professional magazines like Rangefinder or Professional Photographer. I competed nationally. I've judged these big competitions. And at an early age, I tried to set myself apart by winning all these awards because I wanted to be taken seriously. I didn't want to be compared to my dad, and I wanted to stand on my own merit. So it took me 7 years. I got my master's in photography. And at that point, I had a 1 year old and I stopped competing because it was so stressful and I felt it was really like an ego-based thing. And I believe that true art does not have ego attached to it. So I had to manage my life in the celebrity world that in the celebrity world it is a lot of ego and fame and accolades and money. And so how was I going to survive in that? I just knew that if I didn't quiet my mind and my ego, I would be in trouble. So that's how I navigated the early part of my career, really.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there before we go on because I'm taking some notes. I don't want to forget. And I do want to address a few of these things. First of all, thank you for sharing so many things I didn't know about you. This is such an engaging story. I absolutely love it. And I'm just watching the movie of your life while you're you're sharing this, and it's so charming and just intriguing. So but the points that I'd like to bring out here for our specific audience, it's interesting to see repeated patterns with entrepreneurs. And it's almost like everyone goes down these same, has these same qualities, but they either resist it or they kind of open up to it. And what I really enjoy about you, Kerry, is that you have such a pure essence. You have such a pure childlike essence, not childish. I mean, maybe you've got that, I don't know. But no, you're so professional, but you maintain this childlike openness to what's happening in your world. And I'm in love with your dad
Mm.
because he's like a character out of a storybook. I just love that. Um, but the qualities I want to draw attention to are, number one, they're kind of all jumbled together. I guess I would say immediately there was this childlike interest. So you allowed yourself to feed your curiosity, right?
Right,
And there was no judgment ever about that. You just allowed yourself to learn. You saw what was best and you allowed that to be your standard. It's not like you were like, well, she's really good, so I'll probably study someone less famous, right? You
right,
never compromised. So you allowed the vision to pull you. And I think that's very, very significant that you immersed yourself in the vision, you allowed the vision to pull you, you got your ego out of the way. And I've heard this many times that people create these alter egos or alter personalities or whatever. And to me, that's just another way of being playful, like a child. Like, it's like, okay, well, this is the vision I have. This is what I want. So I'm going to be the character that can experience that reality. And I
right,
think oftentimes the people that struggle with doubt and fear, and they don't take the leap because they just won't let themselves be that person or be curious enough to get over the challenge. Um, so I had vision, play, immersion, and um, I love that you just went in and you knew who you were and you
right.
didn't even ask for what you want. You told them,
I
this
know.
is this is what's happening
Right.
and you're part of
Get
it.
on
And
board.
we're doing it. Yeah. So it's like you're already immersed in your movie or whatever, right? Your movie, and you're playing this role. So let's go. I just, oh my gosh, it's such a great story. Okay, so go on. Do you
Well,
remember where you left off?
I think what happened to me. So when you talk about the vision, this is interesting to me because I'm in medical textbooks because when I was born, I my eyes were crossed. And so in the early 70s, they aggressively patched me. And
Mm,
because I was a newborn, the nerve endings never attached from my eyes to the brain. And
wow.
right? So I don't see dually. I've never seen with both eyes at the same time,
Gosh.
right? And so I would go to Boston, Mass Eye and Ear, and all these doctors would come and students, and I was like this girl who could like magically turn off and on her eyes. And so they would say to me, "You'll never drive. You'll never be a photographer. You could never do something that was so compromising to your eyes because they were so limited." And so I was patched on and off as a child for like one entire year. I suffered with double vision. I still suffer with double vision. I'm in progressive glasses now. And so if I had listened to those doctors who
Mm.
told me I would never be, or if I looked around at my environment and saw all men, and how could I ever be in their world? And my father also heard people say like, "Good luck, you'll never be as good as your old man," and this you're not going to be his protege, and you have big shoes to fill. And I never accepted it. I never accepted it. I always thought to myself, just give me a chance to be me. Just I don't compare myself to my dad. My dad doesn't compare himself to me. What works for him works for him, and what works for me works for me. And I make it up as I go. And so if I listen to all those people, then I would never have believed in myself. And because I had this limitation with my eyes, I never relied on my eyes. I relied on my intuition and my heart and my inner knowing. And that's how I create my images and autofocus. But but I can see and pick up details very quickly that other people or just see it in a different way. And it's because of the limitation and the setbacks that really kind of catapulted me forward. So people are like, I feel really sorry for you. I'm like, honestly, don't, because it's been a great gift.
Okay. So many things. Wow. Just wow. First of all, like I'm going to say something that might hurt everyone's feelings who's listening to this, but I've been interviewing not a lot, but a substantial number of women. And I've seen a pattern where often we seem to, the first sign of doubt from anyone, and I think it's human nature overall, is to recoil. But then there's this other type of personality, and which I would fall into this category. I think if you say I can't, then I'm going to do it.
Hmm.
Like just because I want to, like, I don't know, it just annoys me. But you seem to be uniquely in the middle of that, where you weren't reacting. It's not like, oh, well, I'll show you, or please don't be limited. Like, I'm just going to bust through this. You're not busting through this. You're not recoiling. You're just kind of very centered energy. Like, you just know what you are interested in, and you start from the premise of that being a legitimate thing.
Right.
And that's huge, Kerry, because the action we take comes from the foundation of our belief, right? So if we have this idea that we're already, like, my idea is one of worthiness, I'm going to take action on that idea. If I start doubting myself, I could spend 30 years looking for someone to tell me that it's okay for me to be a photographer, even though I may not fall into the category. So where does this come from? How how do women who are looking at you thinking, wow, I wish I could have been that way. How did she do it? What was inside of her? You know, how do I generate that confidence? And it's not an, like I'm saying, it's not like a, like an, I'm gonna, like a sassy confidence. It's just a very solid assuredness. So I'm very curious about that. If you,
Um, my kindergarten teacher told my parents that someday I'd have my name on the outside of the building. I always think that's funny, and I do.
I love that.
I have a commercial building, and my name's out front. Um,
That's amazing. What
but
a
that was not an easy thing to have, and
mhm,
I restored my studio from the ground up. I got divorced with a baby. I had lots of struggles, and I just had a plow guy come. We got 30 inches of snow, and he said to me, I came out to meet him, and he said, do you rent this? I said, no, I own it. And he said, do you come from family money? And I said, no, I'm self-made. He said, how did you do it? I said, I took a loan. When Bush was giving loans to small businesses, I grabbed it and I went for it. And he said, wow, that's really interesting. And I said, well, don't get too impressed. I haven't taken a day off since 1997. So, the hustle's real. And believe me, like I knew how much I paid him for the snow removal. Like it's expensive to run a business and it is about the hustle. And success is earned. It doesn't fall out of the sky.
yeah.
And so I think a lot of it is like the hustle and the work ethic and the deservingness and and there's so many things. It's like being a team player. And so I had to learn how to be a business owner and how to be an inventor in a sense. Like I have to come up with campaigns
Yeah.
and and do all these things and create something out of thin air. And then at the magazine, I had to work as a team. And it sometimes I had to step up in a big way and literally pull a rabbit out of a hat. And sometimes I had to take a back seat and it wouldn't be what I wanted. But I had a really great publisher, and she used to say, your perfection is a gift, but it also can be a detriment.
Mhm.
And we have to move a magazine every 2 weeks, and we can strive for perfection, and that's great. But at some point, you've got to pick the battle to win the war.
Yeah.
So as I've gotten older, perfection doesn't exist, and done is better than perfect.
Mhm.
And so I am very type A and I am an entrepreneur at heart. I think I was born with that. But then you've got to have that like Rocky Balboa. I'm going to do whatever it takes to stay in the ring, to
Yeah.
stay in the arena. Because if you like, I used to say all the time, I'm only as good as my last cover. I've got to do it all over again. And so now that the magazine's closed after 27 years, I left. I was the second hire, I believe, and I was the second person to close the door. So the last person to close the
Oh,
door.
wow.
Yep. And I left with a bag of swag with a bunch of t-shirts that said stay in proper and some coffee mugs. No 401k, no pension, nothing for a lifetime of work, praying that I didn't get a parking ticket. And I carried the hefty trash bag and in the rain, walking through Back Bay in Boston. And I remember thinking, this is the story of my life. But then I smiled to myself and I like get choked up thinking
Yeah.
about this. I wouldn't change one thing because I had the most incredible career. And I get overwhelmed about it because I had such a good run.
Mm.
So blessed to have had that. And now it's on to the next. So am I sad that I don't get to do that really anymore? Something I work so hard for and I'm actually good at. Well, sometimes you have to lose something in order to bring in something new. And that's where the podcast came in. And I had no idea that I would love something and be as passionate about podcasting as I am about photography. And so, having spent an entire life using a camera to tell people stories, now I use a microphone. And it is taking me all over the world. And so
Yeah.
it's doing the essentially, at the magazine, the talent, they would hire the talent and I would show up and be like, okay, great. Today I'm photographing Conan O'Brien, or tomorrow I'm photographing Chris Cooper, or sometimes we parlay stars to get another star. So we got Conan O'Brien, then we got Jay Leno, and I photographed both of them, and that was really cool. Jay Leno I photographed in Boston, and Conan I photographed in LA. So I had this extraordinary career where I got to travel and meet these incredible people with fabulous clothes and stories and all that. But now I get to pick the talent who comes on my show. And it's amazing. It's been the greatest thing I've ever done, honestly. And I'm helping people. And I think that's what it's all about.
Well, yeah, there's always so much in what you say that we could speak to each segment of what you're sharing for an hour, Kerry. But first of all, there are very few people, let alone women, who have a successful photography career. It's really, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's a very unique thing that you have done. What's so charming about you is you're just so accessible and so there's no pretense about you. Like you're just aware of the value of everything in every moment. And I think that is so unique. So and I understand I was getting shivers when you were talking about taking the bag out, because I understand that. And this too is, I think this is the entrepreneurial mindset that I really do believe you're either born with it or you're not. It doesn't mean you can't be an entrepreneur, but I think there is a mindset that you just kind of have. And there is a very creative aspect to business. Like to me, it is the ultimate creation, honestly. So at the moment when you're letting go, it's like the butterfly coming out of the cocoon, right? Or the bird coming out of the egg. You're about to like walk away from this and you're kind of being pushed out, but you could have chosen to sit in that for a long period, you
Yeah,
know.
definitely. I mean, I cried. I'm not going to lie. I cried for about a week. I did, but I understand that art is fluid
Yeah.
and times change. And when I started at the magazine, I would physically, there was no cell phones. I mean, I had a pager,
Yeah. It's
so
hard to imagine.
crazy. And so I would have to physically drive to Newbury Street, go in, they would print out, no one had computers. They would print
Yeah.
out where I was going, and I'd grab my camera bag and I'd drive there and I'd get a parking ticket, most likely, do the shoot, and then I would drop the film off to be developed, and then I would make an actual print, like an 8x10 print, and they would send it to some fancy scanner, and then that would be the cover. And so it's crazy. We fact checked with telephone books. We didn't have computers. I called Matt Damon's dad one time at a test in Cambridge, and I was like, "What's your new wife's name?" Because I forgot. I can't read my writing. And he picked up the phone.
Oh my gosh.
So like this was like pre. I mean, I worked on Good Will Hunting for Matt and Ben
Oh, wow.
in 1990. I think I can't even remember, early 90s, and um, yeah. And I remember I didn't see the movie, so I didn't know Ben. I knew Matt, and Ben was like bossing me around, and I was like, who's this guy? I don't work for you. I work for Matt. I didn't know they were kind of a package deal. And then like all of a sudden there's Robin Williams, and it was just wild,
Wow.
the different things that would happen. Um, I had a really interesting career. I really do think that. But the podcast, starting the podcast, and putting my personal story out there of, the failed relationships and the heartbreak and all that was so humbling for me and so scary. I didn't know if I could do it, but it's so freeing to just be like, this is the deal. This is what's happened. And guess what? It happens to half the country because the divorce rate is what it is. So sometimes things just don't work out, but then you can pull in something better. So, I have an optimistic mindset though too. And
Yeah.
I'm super grateful for everything.
Yeah.
And um I just say I
Well,
think I get that from my dad. I'm just like really, it takes a lot to get me down. I'll tell you that much.
yeah, I feel like when I was thinking of you dumping that bag, it's like I just understand this. It's like you're all it takes is shifting your gaze to what's possible. And that's what you do. You're always looking for the next possible, like what's possible now. It's a creative mindset. And then you move. The difference is you take action. Like you just move in that direction without, and of course you cried and all of that stuff, but you'd be amazed how many people I talk with who say when they their thing happened, because there's something for all of us, right? That it took them about a week, which I think is amazing because it depends on the trauma, right? But a lot of people will say, yeah, I kind of sat on the couch and drank for a week or whatever, and then I got up and I started to create. You created again. So let's talk about the podcast,
Sure.
because you so you're behind the camera, right? You're highlighting everyone else, and you're still doing that in a way with the podcast for sure. But does it feel different to you, to this idea of like kind of betting on yourself and pulling the attention to yourself?
I think the reason why the podcast is successful is because I learned and was trained and conditioned because we put out a magazine every 2 weeks that when it was showtime, when I had to go, and a lot of my covers I shot in 10 minutes or less, 9 minutes or less. Sometimes
Oh,
my, one of my favorite covers I shot in 2 minutes. They gave me four. I was like, you can't give me five. They said no. And I was so mad. Um, and I had a broken foot. It was like so crazy. I like stood up like the queen when it was time for me to go. Like I'm like sitting there on my throne with this broken foot. And it was crazy. And I just stood up and I did it so fast. I did it in two minutes. I said, you can have your 2 minutes back now. I'm all set. So
wow.
I just get really dialed in and really focused when
Uh,
it was really challenging. So one of my favorite episodes on my podcast, I had a ruptured disc and I was in level 10 pain. But this woman was so important to me because her book saved my life.
mm,
So when I did that interview, I was like, it doesn't matter how much pain I'm in, the time's now, and it's time to go on mic. And so, because of my media training, I was able to compartmentalize what was happening in my life and just put on my headset, go live. And so I have to put out an episode each week. I write all the questions, I do all the research, I write the intro, the outro, I do it all myself. I'm definitely a one man band. But you can do it. And if you're passionate about it and you got a little bit of creativity and you have some good ideas, don't overthink it. Just put it out there. Because if you are inspired by a topic or a person, chances are your listeners will be as well. And they are.
Here you are again, focusing on the vision, which I think really is the core. It's the essential core of every entrepreneurial endeavor.
Right.
It really is. And that too is what allows us to take the attention off of ourselves. A lot of women I know for a fact, because I work with them, they really struggle in this loop of it's honestly, I'm kind of over it, because what I want to say to the world is ladies, take the attention off yourself. Quit being self-conscious
Yeah,
and asking the world to tell you that you have value. It's a selfish position. It really is. And because what you'll hear is women will say, well, when I finally realized the impact I was going to make, then I took the action. So the reason we're doing anything isn't, it's in code, right? Like we're really doing it for other people, but we think it's all about us.
yeah.
And I think what you're doing is so interesting because you have this balance of both. And what you're bringing to the table with a podcast is also very unique, Kerry. Look at all the people that are starting podcasts, and you have this work ethic, this attention to, like you were saying, they said that it is the attention to perfection, which most people are not bringing to a podcast. But at the same time, you're able to just rise up when it's showtime and do that 2 minute, that 4 minute shoot in 2 minutes or whatever.
Right.
So everything about what you've done in your past, you're bringing to position yourself very uniquely in this landscape. I believe it's really, really exciting.
It is exciting. But if you can identify, so I love watching Shark Tank because it's very simple. If you can identify that there is a need and you have a solution for that need, then you're in business as long as you put it all together. So for me, I knew that online dating was a multi-billion-dollar industry and that the largest age group onboarding these dating apps were people in their 50s. And people didn't know what the hell was going on. There was no handbook, there was no self help book, there was no guide for a multi billion-dollar industry. And I struggled, and out of survival on these dating apps, I learned and cracked the code of online dating. And I sat on that information for about 4 years. I wish I didn't, but I continued to help people through my photography and doing their headshot for online and just coaching them and helping them. And it wasn't until I helped a really good friend who was 56 and she had a communications and marketing background. And she said, you've got to put this together creatively. And I'm like, I don't think I can. She said, yes, you can. And she said, you can write, Kerry. I said, I don't know that I can write. I have my master's in photography. I'm an artist. She said, when you tell stories, people listen. And that a good writer knows how to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
So just write like you talk and we'll fix the rest. She's like, just try. So I started creating, and it was really everything in the world was turned upside down for women. It was the beginning of the Me Too movement. I had so much trauma about like I don't like when people are left behind. I don't like when there's so much unrest and divide. And I was falling apart, like just triggered every moment. And there is data to support that a lot of people were just becoming unhinged. That was the beginning. We did not know the pandemic was happening. And in order to survive that time, because I'm such an empath, like I was like not eating or sleeping, it was bad. I just put all my pain of my past creatively into creating the first piece, which was called the Swiping Soiree, where I decided to teach middle-aged women in suburbia how to become rock stars on Tinder. And I call it like my Tinder tour or my Tinder musical, where I put together this live keynote and I was crazy enough to do it. And I got the attention of a Hollywood producer and he said, Kerry, I think you have like a docuseries here. I think you've got something really good, but you need to have something more than like 5,000 followers on social media. You need like a serious brand. And the quickest way to do that is to start a podcast. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. He's like, you can do it. And so he helped me. He helped me with my first 6 episodes, and then the pandemic hit. So I was on a television show here in Boston that does different features, and I was featured for Valentine's Day when I launched my podcast. So this Valentine's Day, it will be 2 years. And so on the clip, it says, Kerry Brett, 30% of people are online dating. Within 2 weeks of that airing, it jumped to 96%. So I,
Wow.
yeah. So for the first four
That's so
months,
crazy.
crazy, crazy. So everything on online dating changed within that year. Everything, like crazy things. Like they had Black Lives Matter badges on OkCupid. They did Tinder Passport. You could date all around the world. Every dating app had to get virtual right away. So you had virtual dates and virtual chats within the dating. I mean, everybody just got down to business. Like, how are we going to make these dating apps
Mm-hmm.
for the pandemic? And the numbers went through the roof. The first 3 months of the pandemic, the stock, all these dating apps, the stocks went crazy. So the stigma that I was trying to dismantle around the shame about being single or having to be desperate enough to join a dating
Yeah.
app was gone. So when I started this podcast, everyone's like, this is career suicide. You've lost your mind. What are you doing? The news in the media wanted to pick it up because they were like, this is really interesting that this celebrity photographer is going to go on a limb and do something completely different when she has this ability in another area. But they didn't understand what I was doing, and it didn't really matter if people didn't understand what I was doing. I understood what I was doing, and I'm a Tinder success story, so I could understand the need for this valuable information. So I created a show for the heartbroken girl that I was, like at ground zero on the floor, couldn't see my way out. And if I had my show, I would have been healed a lot quicker. It's so it's very gratifying to know that for some people, I'm like a lifeline for them. And I've seen it. And it's the messages I get, it's better than a trash bag full of swag from the improper. So,
Yeah. Okay. So absolutely, you are a lifeline for a lot of people. And if you would just speak for a little bit about what you actually are offering, because I know the podcast alone is tremendous. I know you're still doing some photography, and you also have a course, you also do consulting, you have a lot of stuff. And how can people experience, like, I haven't seen this swiping soiree. How can I see that? We want it all. We want to
yeah,
know
I mean,
all, because it's very inspiring,
yeah,
Kerry. And it's a journey that everybody can relate to at one point or another.
yeah, I will tell you this. When I first did the swiping soiree, and I had a lot of people rooting for me and supporting me, and I would just like sit at my computer, and I remember coming in and I just said, Mom has left the building. Okay. Like I just had no control. I felt like I had my head was in a vice and I had so much creativity pouring through me. It was like literally like a beautiful mind. And I just wrote and wrote and I sketched it all out. I color coded guys. I had 800 screenshots of men. I mean, I just put this all together on this, like, it was crazy. I mean, I can show you the visual components, but I built this live keynote. Now, I had been doing lectures and speaking about photography, so I knew that I could learn keynote and figure it out and learn how to make videos and do all that. And they helped me up at Apple. I took a lot of classes up there. They're free. Anyone can do that. And so I built the swiping soiree, and I remember once I was finished I looked at my boyfriend and I said, "Oh my God, what have I done? Like, I want to undo all this." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I'm terrified. I cannot get up and tell my story." And I just sat at my desk and I cried and cried. And my boyfriend said, "Well, it's too late now." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "You know what, Kerry? You've got this all wrong." I said, "What? What? What?" I'm like, "I'm just so upset. I don't know if I can do this. I'm in the media. Like, this is insane." He said, "It's not about you. It's about helping other people who are struggling." And when he told me that, I was like, "Yep, okay." So even those moments when I had to be on TV live or go and people drove from all over to come and hear me speak, I would be like shaking and breathing into a paper bag, and he'd have to drive me and I'd be like, "I don't know if I can do it." And he's like, "You can do it." And now I don't even think about it. Like, I am Mike on Clubhouse. I go a lot, I do my podcast every week. I've gotten a lot better. I've gotten more confidence in my abilities to speak. But you have to start somewhere. You have to be, and my first episodes are terrible on my podcast. I can barely hear like I don't even want to listen to it, but there's still valuable information. So I keep it up there because I also like to show the growth too. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to try. And you'll never know if you don't try. It's like dating.
I'm so happy that you met your boyfriend. What is it? Does he have a name?
He does have a name.
You
He has,
don't.
he has a challenging last name, which is like kind of a joke because I remember I could barely pronounce his last name. And I remember I said to my dad, he's going to move in. And he was like, "But you really can't even pronounce his last name. Don't you think that's like a problem?" And I laughed and I said,
That is great. That's so
"After
funny.
everything I've been through, like, forget the last name." But so his name is Scott and his last name is Stunzenis. And sometimes I still have to like spell it out. Um, it's
Oh
with,
my gosh,
yeah,
that's so fun. That
yeah,
is
it's
so
fun.
fun. Okay, so there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but let's I keep thinking of how the audience, the value for them. That is so beautiful what you just shared. And I do, so what you're offering though, you can help people. Let's get back to that because I want everyone to know
Oh,
that you could serve them in these ways because I think there are not a lot of people out there who, with your background and what you were bringing to the table, most of the people that I know who have started podcasts have, and there's nothing wrong with this at all. I do believe it, like you said, in imperfect action, just take action. I do it all the time. That's how you learn and grow. But most of them are on YouTube learning. And this too is why when I coach people, the value of a coach or a consultant is to help you move faster and have more fun doing it
yeah.
because you can enjoy the creative portion of it, which is what the whole thing is about, and serving rather than all of the stumbling over obstacles. So you are a consultant to help other people too, as well, right? Can you talk about that a little?
So I basically, I started with the swiping soiree. So I would do the program. It's about an hour, and then people would sit for hours and raise their hand and ask me questions. And that's where I really shined because I could draw from my personal experience, and I had this way of connecting with people and hearing their pain, and they trusted me and they believed me. And
Mm,
so I just interviewed this woman who's in Beverly Hills. She's a dating strategist and she went to school for styling, and she talks about it just launched today. I haven't even written the show notes yet. I just came up with the title. But she's also a therapist. She was a therapist for 10 years, and she found that people had worked years and years on the inside, but once they shifted the outside and had that makeover, or in my case, had that headshot and had that coaching and that knowledge, they were able to shift and transform their lives
yeah.
like so quickly. Find love so quickly. I've had people come for headshots, just the act of putting themselves first, getting hair and makeup, coming to my studio. They'd leave, everything changed about them. They saw the beauty that they forgot, and then meet someone that night. I've had it happen a bunch of times. I've found love for people in 48 hours. It can happen really fast. So I created, someone was like, Harry, you got to do a masterclass. And it took me 4 months, just morning, noon, and night. And I didn't want to put my name on. I was determined this has to be, every module has to be packed with life experiences, stories that clients have helped, what happened to me, and what happens to other people. And so I lay it out for you in 9 modules, and I teach you the common mistakes, what to avoid, men to avoid, just how to keep you and retain your power. And then with the masterclass, you also get 6 coaching calls with me. And so you're gonna need, as you're dating, you're going to need to implement everything that's in the 9 modules, and you'll forget certain things, or they'll show up in different ways, and you'll second guess yourself, or you'll lose your confidence. And then that's where the coaching, I think the first coaching call has been, okay, I have all this information, now what? Or I've been getting feedback like certain things this is the first run, and people will say, I'd like more on this. Okay, but I can answer those questions within the call. But I know that I will create more of this, more modules as time goes on, because I just have so much in my head. And I literally read a relationship book a day, and I'm always researching the top people in this world. So like I said, with the pandemic, it's always changing. and I just think you can get there quicker if you have a coach and you have the strategies and the tips and tricks to figure it out. And it's invaluable, because if you can find love easily and freely, just with barely any effort, your career does better, your health is better. Just everything lines up quicker for you.
It's absolutely invaluable.
Oh yeah.
And you're so I love that you're providing the coaching as well, the one-on-one, because what I'm thinking as you're talking is it's true in business too, but especially with this, we don't really know what we need when we jump in. And it's so important to have that structure. So I really like that you have the online modules, because we need the education, we need the awareness,
Mhm.
and jumping all over. Like, the fact is, there's information out there anywhere, right? But when we get into that shiny object syndrome mode, and we're just gathering all this information from random places, it actually disperses our attention and energy, and it's overwhelming, confusing. So when you choose one person and you learn from them, and then to have this one-on-one with you, because it really is almost like, when you're talking about the changes that happen so quickly, what we're trying to do is almost create that new version of ourselves. And
Mhm.
it's scary, and you need another human being to allow to just process things with,
Yeah.
because you have no idea what's really happening in this world. And the unfortunate thing is, if you don't have someone, you have all the voices in your head, and that's just not really helpful. You're not going
Right.
to, it's not fun, and you're not going to move quickly. So really,
Right.
really valuable.
And it's also like heartbreaking stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm telling people certain things that they don't want to hear, because
Mm.
I'm saving them pain, and I'm keeping them in the driver's seat so they can hear what I have to say, and I can back it up. I can be like, I've got the top psychologist agreeing with me on episode blah, blah, blah. This best selling author, this. relationship scientists. I can back up everything I'm saying,
Yeah.
but they have to do the work. And so
Yeah.
the reason why I did the coaching is because I can just do photography. I don't want to take your money and not have you find love and be successful. I'm not interested in that. That doesn't feel good to me. I want you to succeed. So you can call 5 of your friends who are going to tell you, you can call them, you can text them. No, you can't.
Yeah. Your friends can be the worst. It's really not that different. I mean, we've had this conversation
Yeah.
many times. It's not that different than the way you build your business.
Yep.
Usually the closest people to you are not really giving you the information that you need, especially emotionally. They're going to hold you back, or they're going to think really quickly, what would I do? Or they're going to live vicariously through you, which can be very dangerous. So it's really important. Yeah, I love that you're offering this. And everything you bring to the table, Kerry, is just, I don't think people realize until you go down the wrong road how valuable it is to have someone that brings this level of attention to detail, quality, research, education. I mean, it's almost like everything in your world has brought you to be so valuable right now for so many people at the perfect time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I lost 2 years of my life literally crying every day, heartbroken. And had I had the correct information, those 2 years, I mean, I can't get that time back. Those 2 years would have been like 2 weeks tops, 2 days. Maybe
Yeah.
even, you just need someone to flip the switch, to turn that key, to finally like just give you that breakthrough moment where you're like, I'm done with this. Like I can choose. I don't need
Yeah.
to be treated like this. I don't need it. And I don't deserve it. And there are wonderful people out there and there's great people, but there's there's a system to this.
Mm.
There's a strategy, and you can't be good at something. I have a lot of experience on these dating apps, and every module came from a heartbreak. So, I didn't invent the game, but I know how to beat the player.
I didn't invent the game, but I know how to beat the player.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
I'm the coach.
Yeah, I think that's a good tagline, actually. Okay, so Kerry, this has been so valuable, and I just honestly could speak with you all day long. I mean, we could take any one topic and go really, really, I could ask you questions for hours, but our time is trickling through the hourglass. I'm afraid I actually have to prepare for
Yeah.
something else. But listen, could we, first of all, is there one piece of advice, or one or two things that you would like these ladies to understand about, and keep in mind, like, I don't know what level they are, but it's very helpful to hear everyone's story because it's so unique. So one piece of advice for entrepreneurship, and maybe a piece of dating advice, which I think you've already given us a lot, but those two things. And then I do want you to share a little bit about how someone might be able to work with you if they felt so inclined, either, I mean, in any capacity.
Okay. Um, I guess in dating, I always give the reference of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, like she could just click her heels and and but she could, and
Yeah.
she didn't need the scarecrow, she didn't need to like she had the power all along.
Yeah.
And so we have the power to shift. We have the power to make that change. Recently, my boyfriend's been training me. It's been hysterical, and he's just lost like 45 pounds. And he's been really patient with me. And it's been painful for me because I had that ruptured disc, and now I'm kind of starting over. But I know without that uncomfort or that's when the shift happens. So you've got to just get out of your own way. Sure, you'll be nervous. Sure, you know, it's a territory, uncharted waters, but it's the only way you're going to move forward. And I think in business, why not you? Like, why not? Just I always say my boyfriend jokes and he's like, you are the Rocky Balboa of like, no matter what, like I may go to bed in tears and, but that next day I've got the music going and I'm running, in the rain. And I think you just have to have that fierce determination that you will succeed and there's no other if, ands, or buts. Like it's happening now. So I just think having that belief in yourself is so important in dating and in business.
You're so delightful. So that's a lot of value right there. Just um, running in the rain, dancing in the rain, whatever you're doing something, you're actually in the snow right now, however
Right,
many feet of snow. But so fierce determination. And it is true that the dating landscape is like the entrepreneurial landscape. I mean, you're taking a risk. So out of your comfort zone, fierce determination, and why not you?
right. And
Those are great, three
thank
great
thank
things,
you.
three
I,
great
I
takeaways.
want to say this, and I had a friend. She has a company called Love Amy. Her name is Amy Nobley, and she's been on my show 3 times now. And so she said to me, Kerry, you're a unicorn. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, I have helped people in their quest to finding love. She does it in a different way, but she has like she goes in and swipes for you, stuff like that. So she said to me, what is it about you that you just believed 100%?
Oh my goodness.
She said,
Sorry.
somewhere in people's psyche, they believe that they're just not good at finding love or they're just not good at dating or maybe there isn't someone for them. And I never believed that. I believe in the law of attraction. I believe in karma. And I knew that I was a good person and I put an awful lot into my past failed relationships. And I knew that that would come back to me. So there wasn't one um, moment of doubt, not one thought that I wouldn't find love. I believed I would find love. It was just how quickly would it happen. And I'm super impatient, so relatively speaking, it did happen pretty fast. But because I believed I would find love, I did. So it's all about your belief system. And like, are you going to be successful? Can you get this job? Are you going to nail that cover? Will you have a successful date? It's really like what you tell yourself. And then it works and becomes fruition. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I've heard you say this so many times. And I think this is, I mean, a lot of amazing, powerful takeaways for whoever's listening to this, but that that is so wonderful that you shared that. I see that throughout your entire life. The belief was just there. And at the same time, you're not denying like the struggle or the painful periods of time, but you come back to this believing and this childlike curiosity of like, why not? And so I'm going back to the beginning of the story now, remembering even with your eyes, that could easily shut you down. But no, you just kept asking the right questions into possibility, right? So yeah, and I've heard you say this so many times that it's really about the believing that it's possible. So
Right.
that's where your energy goes and you start taking action, and then what do you know? start
Right.
pulling in all the right people, as you like to say, and then you're creating a masterpiece that other people look at and say, I see the value here
Mhm.
because you bet on yourself. So yeah, yeah, just beautiful story, beautiful shares, so much valuable information, and you are such an inspiration. And I
Thank you.
know that everyone who hears this will begin to see more possibility. And I will share at the end, when we present this, all of your information will be there. So if there's Shot at Love podcast, and would you like to share anything else before we close this out?
So, you can find out more about my photography at kerrybrattlifestyleportraits.com. My online masterclass is at Shot, and it's Shot AT Love .co, not .com. And so it's a little different because the at sign is for the podcast. So I'm on all platforms where you can find podcasts, and my show is called Shot at Love. And I'm on Clubhouse as well. I do a room in my Shot at Love room on Saturday mornings at 11. And I'm excited to see what else I'll create. And I'm really excited to help people find love.
Yeah, wonderful. And we will be sharing all of that information with everyone so you can reach out to Kerry. But Kerry, this has been such a delightful pleasure. You are such a joy. And thank you for your time. And I will be talking with you again very soon, I hope.
Awesome.
Stay
Thanks so much
warm.
for having me. Yeah.
Uh, Thank
Thanks.
you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.